Speaking of Des Moines, we have Des Moines Mayor Frank Cownie joining us in studio right now as we are wrapping up 2015 and talking about the various adventures we've all had in the past year. And Mayor, you had an adventure a little while ago that took you overseas.
Went to Paris.
How about that?
Yeah.
What a good gig this is, being the mayor of Des Moines. You get to go to Paris.
Yeah.
Now, did your lovely significant other go with you or not?
No, it was right after the terrorist attack.
I was going to say, were there any concerns after the terrorist attack of going over there? I know we reported on you saying no matter what, I'm going, but was there any extra security or issues that you had to deal with?
Yes.
Bottom line is yes.
The security was very tight around Paris, everywhere from the airport all the way into the central city, and then of course the places where we went, which was Le Bourget, which was the old airport, which is where the conference was held, and then we had a separate meeting at City Hall a couple, 3 days with the mayor of Paris. And so it was interesting, you know, when you have about 600 local government representatives from around the world all meeting to work on.
So what was the name of this conference you were at for those people that might not have followed that?
Well, it's the United Nations Conference of the Parties on Climate Change. And so this is the 21st conference that they've held. And the idea was to get everybody to commit to something, and to realize that there's some things going on around the world related to climate, and what is it that we're going to do about it. And of course, the science discussed and has for a really long time sort of a climate ceiling in terms of temperature that over which they're not quite sure what the consequences are. So what you hope is that everybody has some ambition to do something. And I think that the organizers of this COP, Conference of the Parties, the people in Paris, they asked all the attendees to kind of submit their initial commitments on what they were going to do. And 195 countries participated. Prior to the conference itself, 185 of them committed to do something. And by the end of it, everybody committed. It was unanimous adoption of the declaration. So you feel like, you know, you got someplace. But I will say that a lot of it was pushed by local citizens, local government from around the world, many of which are already seeing consequences. I mean, in Des Moines, we see floods. We are seeing huge increases in flows of rivers, not only because of more extreme events singularly, but also, you know, what's happening upstream in the watershed. I mean, it's way changed over the last 40, 50 years.
The folks at Iowa State will confirm that we're having more heavy rain events than we had 30 years ago. We're having warmer overnight lows than we had 30 years ago. And the ocean levels are rising, and you know, I certainly accept the science, and it's hard not to, especially when it comes to sea level rise. I mean, there's islands disappearing.
Exactly. Something's
got to be done. And I guess where I'll start is that now that we have this agreement in place, the problem is then a lot of these people have to go back to their whatever legislature they have and pass really hard reforms and put things on paper. And in some cases, that's probably going to be hard, right?
Yes, but which I think is where we kind of take a quick look back again to the local government. Now, local governments are NGOs, non-government organizations. So anything below national, federal level is considered a non-government organization. But
is that why they got so many mayors involved? Because they said if we start at that level, maybe more things can get done.
Well, and we're already doing stuff. I mean, and part of it is because we're seeing the consequences of it. Whether it's an island nation and a city, really, you know, they're having to do stuff to mitigate or prepare for events. We're doing that here in Des Moines. We're looking at our levee system. We're looking at pump stations. We're looking at flows of the river and how they changed over that last 40 years that you were talking about. And so, you know, we have committed, and that was part of the mayor's compact, mayors, this 600 plus mayors in cities from around the world all said, hey, we're going to do something. City of Des Moines, we did our baseline studies starting in 2012. We're almost at 15% of our reductions in our operations, and similar in the city. Mid-American Energy now, 7-8 years ago, they were all coal and nuke and a little bit of hydro and a little gas. Today they're 40% wind. And big change and a big reduction.
Now, seeing that Des Moines is on the forefront, try to stay ahead of this, did you guys get called on to go and speak to anybody and say, here's what we're doing? Did you have a chance to do that?
Yeah, we spoke at City Hall. We spoke at the COP itself to anybody that'd listen. We were in a number of forums. We'd have 2-3 mayors who would speak. We spoke in the French pavilion. We spoke in the U.S. pavilion a couple of times. Had private meetings with secretaries and negotiators, some from Europe, some from the United States, all of us trying to figure out, how do we walk away with something that's meaningful? Because in the past, I've gone to 4 of these, three of them starting in Copenhagen. You walk away and say, there's a lot of acknowledgement of what needs to be done, but we didn't walk away with a deal.
Right.
Nobody's going to do anything. There are, but not a commitment. This time, everybody walked away with a commitment, but I think that we have to step up our ambitions, because science would tell us that the commitments that were made there are not enough.
So what was your takeaway? What are you bringing back to us here locally so that we can start implementing to make some change here?
Well, Des Moines is doing what we can do. I think we should pass it around the state of Iowa. It would help in so many areas, whether it be public health or public safety or protection of buildings and land, and what we're doing here. The rest of the cities around the United States that have committed to this compact, there's about 120, 130 now, I think, that have. Everybody is doing what they can where they are with what they have today, knowing technology is going to change, and there's lots of opportunity out there. And I think what we have to do is make everybody aware of what they can do where they are. A lot of stuff. There's budget constraints everywhere, and so you have to start with everything that you can do in our own homes. We can make our own homes more energy efficient. We can look at different ways to put more insulation in, caulk the windows, maybe replace the windows, replace the doors, replace the furnace, do whatever it is that you can do and have great savings. The United States Green Building Council we've worked with them, mayors and others around the country, and they've said just in energy savings alone, because of the inefficiency of buildings, we spend about $130, $140 billion extra over what we could if we had our buildings properly.
One of the problems that people have with this whole concept is that what we're proposing in some cases is giving a lot more power to government to regulate industry and to regulate carbon emissions of some kind. And what did people say at the conference about that? What was your sense there?
Well, I think there's such a sense of urgency. The carbon trading or tax on carbon or a cap and trade kind of a thing didn't really come into it. Everybody was trying to figure out what they can do right now, immediately, because they realize that stuff has to be done. So I would guess that will be sort of a follow-up, because one of the chief issues around it, again, is finance. How do you finance this change that needs to take place?
Right.
And so that those that need it can get it. There are some countries, like you said, the island nations. There was sort of a damage and loss provision that was put in, and if your country's going underwater, what are you going to do? How are you going to mitigate it? are we going to have to move? And I think in many cases there are.
Yeah.
You know, and there's such connectivity with everything in this whole climate realm. Is we look at like immigrants. And you know, what are we going to do when people fleeing Syria and Central America and South America for different reasons? And you know, we're always, or at least the discussion, people are leery about what are we going to do? You know, should we let them in or should we not? And we're just talking about hundreds of thousands or maybe 1 million people coming out of Syria, maybe, you know, plus or minus. What they're talking about is 200 to 600 million people having to be, you know, relocated.
Wow. Because of sea level rise.
Right, in the next, you know, 30 to 40 years. So, you know, our kids and grandkids are going to be hugely impacted.
But really quickly, Mayor, because we need to wrap up here, the people that are watching at home right now, is there something they can do on a daily basis? I know you talked about watching energy savings for their homes, but is there something they can do or pay attention to every single day of their life to maybe make a difference for our environment right here in Central Iowa?
You know, a number of years ago, we have talked about that, and I think some of the same ideas hold true today. You know, shut off your lights, cut down your usage. If you have to run a bunch of errands, you know, don't make 10 trips to run 10 errands. Make one trip and do 10 errands, you know, while you're out there. So cut down on your use of gasoline. It'll save you money. So it'll be good with your checkbook and your own personal finances. And then when you can, have Mid-American Energy come do an audit on your house. Look at all the things that you can do. Do the least expensive things first. And you know, try to just step it up every day. I remember when we did this about a decade ago, you know, we handed out CFLs. And Mid-American was our partner on that. And you know, do one thing today, change a light bulb.
Just change one. It makes if everybody did it, it would make a huge difference.
Exactly.
All right.
Get them. So you walked away feeling good about the conference.
You know, you have two sides. One, everybody walked away with a deal. You have to feel good about that, and everybody was very, very positive about it. I'm talking about all the countries and the people that participated, you know, from around the world. On the other hand, you look at it and you go home, and it's a little daunting knowing the work that we have to do.
Right.
And but we have got to get started now.
You're just the guy to do it.
Thanks,
Mayor.
There you go. Mayor of Des Moines, Frank Cownie. Happy New Year, my friend. Do good.
Thank you.